Hey everyone, it's your favorite host, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, dating. And I've been on a mission to find experts upon experts. And I think I found the expert, the man, the myth, the legend. This man speaks across the world and his YouTube channel has thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers, people that subscribe to the topics on dating that this man is spitting and putting out to the universe. And it's helping millions of men and helping women bridge the gap between us because we are not doing well. And so I can't help but introduce this incredible man, this powerful speaker, Mr. Jonathan Aslay, as he comes to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage to help chop it up so we can do better and grow in all aspects of life, but especially dating. So without further ado, help me welcome to the stage the incredible Mr. John Aslay. Welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. How are you, sir?
I feel like, can I get an amen?
Absolutely.
Honored to be here.
Honored to have you, sir. You are profound and you are a true hero in bridging the gap in relationships. That's why I sought you out. And I'm so glad you made time for us here on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage. I want to start with an icebreaker. First off, sir, when did you have the bug? When did you know that you had the gift to speak into men and women's lives in aspects of relationship? When did it hit you? When did it occur?
Oh, that's a great question. So, back in 2005, after turning 40 and going through a divorce, I found myself back in the dating marketplace. And, at this time, the internet dating was just beginning to take off. And I found myself on the dating sites and I would meet, a really nice woman, go on a nice date, but something wasn't right. And then a few days later, I meet another woman, a nice date, but something wasn't right. And in the course of 1 year, I realized that I had over 100 internet dates. And in that time, I realized that the something wasn't right was me. I was the common denominator. So what was interesting, though, is while I was chatting with women, oftentimes not even going on dates with some of them, I would just talk to them about their divorces, their relationships. I didn't realize I was actually using women unintentionally for therapy. And a lot of women were using me for therapy, too. They would, some of them would ask my opinion. Hey, Jonathan, will you look at my dating profile and help me make it better? And I'm like, okay. And I would do that. And sure enough, a month later, I'd get a call. Jonathan, I met a great guy based on your advice. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm actually good at this. So that's kind of where it was birthed almost 17, 18 years ago.
Absolutely incredible. The dating realm has changed over the years. It's changed numerous times.
Yeah.
And now the introduction of online dating is absolutely crazy. So when you coach to this, when you speak to this, I want to stick right here for a minute. When you coach to this, are you for encouraging your students to go for dating apps, or are you pushing them away and discouraging them and saying it's not genuine, it's not real? Is dating apps creating genuine connections or just superficial encounters?
That's a tricky question to answer. And I want to say that on some level, dating apps are a blessing in some level because we get access to people that we wouldn't otherwise meet in our daily lives. In fact, a recent study that I saw, or a graph or chart I saw, said that about 65% of all new couples today meet online. Now, I'm assuming that covers the Gen Zs all the way to the baby boomers who are meeting. And what used to be most popular, which was family, church, work, college, bars. When I say those were the most predominant 30 plus years ago, those areas have dipped below 5% each, and online dating represents the largest percentage. Now, that doesn't mean that 65% of people who are online dating are going to have a successful relationship. It just means 65% of people are meeting through that medium. So there's a blessing and curse to it. I mean, we can get into the granular effects of that if you want to.
Please, if you can share some pros and some cons of people who may not have yet experienced online dating or dating apps, can you share some pros and cons that people need to be cautious about?
Sure. So the pro goes back to what I said a moment ago. You know, you would have access to people that wouldn't necessarily be in your daily life. I just want everyone to think, imagine 50 to 100 years ago before the internet. Whomever you mated with, in other words, whomever you end up, dating and or became, married with each other, you met in your social circle, most likely. You met through family, you met through your community, that sort of thing. Now, since we kind of more in the United States here, and particularly, we live more disenfranchised lives from community and family for the most part. I'm generalizing here. Online gives you access to people. The con, couple things. First off, online dating, particularly swipe apps, have marginalized people to just their attractiveness. Now we could say
Mm.
that's been throughout history. In other words, you're at a cotillion, a dance, and you see someone you're attracted to, and you walked up to them. So certainly physical attraction has always been the case, but now with this plethora of people, we're marginalizing people based on attraction, number one. The real challenge, though, Marcus, is this. We're meeting total strangers. And because they're total strangers, we typically don't know their backstory. We don't know their history. We don't know their credibility. We don't know their character. And here's the challenge for most human beings. Most human beings are actually really poor at vetting people from a mating perspective. They are absolutely, when I say vetting, asking the right questions, determining compatibility, all of these factors, because we have grown up to believe that chemistry equals relationship success. And if we have chemistry for someone, that's all we need to be successful. And there are far more moving parts to relationship success than chemistry. And sadly, when you're meeting strangers, if you don't go in conscious to this process, it can leave for a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of confusion and frustration.
You're so right. You're so right. You're speaking to so many great points, and thank you for diving deep there, because there is the problems, right? We're looking at the online dating websites are causing us to look at the superficial things that
Yes.
don't really actually make a quality connection, right? And so staying in that vein, is finances a qualifier or a disqualifier? Should that be considered it while dating someone? Should I be concerned with how much she makes, or should a woman be concerned with how much I make? Is that a pre-qualifier when vetting in the dating aspect?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me explain why. And this is something that you have to assess early rather than later. Given that 50% of divorces claim that the reason for the divorce tends to be something centered around money, isn't it kind of naive now to go into the dating process without some awareness of finances or resources? Okay. So, we've been indoctrinated the belief that men are provider protectors and they have to pay for everything. Certainly that was the case up until about 50 or 60 years ago, when predominantly women were dependent upon men for resources. Now, given that women outnumber men in the workforce, at least from a numbers perspective, not necessarily from a wage perspective, thankfully for women, they actually now have the resources to support themselves, so they don't have to choose a partner purely based on the need of survival. Okay.
Mm.
So with that said, I would venture to say now, it's difficult if someone's ego is involved. If someone has a desire for a very extravagant lifestyle, a very extravagant way of being, whether they're a man or a woman, then you probably need to choose a partner that can meet that need if that's what you desire. I think realistically speaking, given that 80% of Americans make less than $100,000 a year, in fact, 80% of Americans have less than 1 year's savings in the bank to cover them if they should, say, lose their job or something, we have to recognize that it almost takes two incomes to survive a significant relationship. I mean, you almost need two incomes for one person to survive, and I'm being a little tongue in cheek, but certainly what you bring to the table matters. So the question is, here's the thing. I believe it is so naive not to have a conversation about finances. And now the question is when to have that conversation.
Yes.
Well, I believe that before the penis goes inside the vagina on a regular basis, and please forgive me, I wanted to graphically illustrate the word sex or sleeping together. I think conversations about the purpose of a relationship should be discussed before two people become physically intimate with each other.
I like that. I like that. So, gender roles, are they alive and well? Should we go back to that era of time where it was all about survival? Hey, we need two incomes. The dynamic has changed. We need to reconsider the dynamic because we're still trying to survive. Millions, the statistics you just shared, millions of Americans are not doing well financially. Inflation is on the rise. And so, should gender roles still play a factor in this? Where, hey, I'm still the man, right? My role hasn't changed. I'm still a man, but I need your help now more than ever. Or has gender roles completely fallen off the map and we need a new paradigm shift in the dating world?
Well, I'm going to start with there definitely needs a new paradigm shift because some of the traditional ways of doing things have left people very, as I said earlier, disenfranchised. First off, when you become dependent upon another person for your survival, it can put you in a very precarious person. And you'd have to hope that that person genuinely loves, cares for you, and has your best interest at heart. Because if that person doesn't genuinely love, care, and have your best interest at heart, you are giving your power away to another human being, predominantly women giving their power away to a man. And so, unless now, certainly there are good men out there, but there are a lot of men who are struggling emotionally, a lot of men struggling financially, and that puts a burden on a relationship, especially if he has the full responsibility for the home. Now, ideally, wouldn't it be great we could live in a world where the man could be the primary breadwinner and the cost of living was such that we could survive on that one income? But the reality is that's not the case. Now, let's add in a couple other factors. I actually speak to a demographic of what I call midlife, and that's after baby making years and before retirement. So my audience I speak to is roughly between the ages of 42 and 69. A significant percentage, roughly 75% of people in that age demographic are most likely divorced. And with divorce comes a whole host of other things. You might be paying alimony, child support, you've got, children possibly involved. So that brings in more unique nuances to it. And in many cases, men don't have the resources to support themselves because they're also having to support another family. That's one of many things that happen. So having these conversations, or at least having an understanding of where a person is at, might be part of your decision-making process if you want to proceed in a relationship.
That's so true. This is good. Jonathan Aslay, spilling the tea here on Gentleman Style Podcast Show. One more round of applause, y'all. This is good. This is the tea that we need to survive. This is what we need to do better. And so that is tremendous. And so you've touched on divorce. I wanted to speak on what things should women be conscious of, or try to be conscious of? Men and women should be trying to be conscious of when they initiate divorce, because that's not an easy thing, right? As far as relationship aspects, should they give it another try? Should they really dive deep before hitting that panic button? Or because I feel like it's become the new, oh, I don't like it, I don't have the tingles anymore, let's just end it, right?
Yeah, so this is a great question. And oftentimes women are criticized for exiting a relationship because they didn't get all of their needs met. That's kind of the general criticism out there. But you know what? If a man was such a great leader of a relationship, then his woman should never feel that way. I just want to put that out there for all the men that are like, well, men are the leaders of the relationship. If they're doing such a great job, then why would women be feeling that way? Now, a lot of people would criticize that women are becoming way too entitled and way too egotistical. And to some degree, there certainly is elements of that. Social media has heightened things. Superficiality in our world has heightened things. So there's no doubt about that. Here's the reality, the way I see it. Most couples haven't built true emotional intimacy in their relationship. And let me say that one more time. Most couples haven't built true emotional intimacy. The reason why women tend to initiate divorces more often than men can get nest in a relationship. Once they're in, they're not going anywhere. But that doesn't make them, any better at a relationship just because they nest. They oftentimes become lazy and don't invest in the emotional intimacy of the relationship. Now, here's the thing. The reason why this is so critically important is, unlike 50 and 100 years ago, when survival was literally against, or maybe thousands of years ago, survival was the battle against the elements. Now we are hitting a new phase in our humanity that centers around emotional connection. And what happens is, most relationships that start to struggle is because they stop being emotionally intimate with them, which also leads to a lack of physical intimacy. There are a lot of men that just because they don't ask for a divorce, they also, couples haven't had sex for decades in many of these cases as well. Okay. So what I believe is that we need a huge re-education, particularly helping men and women evolve their emotional maturity, their capacity to speak their needs, wants, and desires in a way that can be seen, heard, and understood. Learning good communication skills. And to answer your question, should a woman give up? Well, I believe that in many cases, usually when a woman does end a relationship, she's been trying to work at it for years. A lot of times men are stubborn and are like refuse to actually want to work on the relationship. They go into this stoic mode of, I'm the man, this is the way it's supposed to be. And guess what happens? They find themselves in a relationship that ended.
That's true. There's cause and effect, right? The cause is you don't want to make it big. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say this. If it seems like I'm bashing men, let me be clear to men listening to this. Women are no picnic either. Believe me, they have a capacity to ramble and vomit their emotions and feelings without it ever being concise. They can go around in circles, not being, succinct in their communication. They can oftentimes, in many cases, act entitled. So let me be clear. Just because I'm pointing out some shortfalls within men, believe me, to the guys listening, women are no picnic either.
Right. It's not easy. It's not easy on both sides, right?
Yes, exactly.
So speaking on that, I wanted to ask a big controversial thing because I see the change, and I know you've seen the change where men are opting to not pay for dates, right? I've met men who say, well, I'm not paying for anything, any big financial expenses in the dating aspect when we're going out on date. We need to split the bill until we're committed to each other. What do you suggest, or what do you should men always pay on dates? Should there be a bridging off point?
This is a great question. I love this question for so many different reasons. I recognize that traditionally speaking, it's the expectation that a man pays for a date. And when a woman expects a man to pay for a date, and I use the word expectation, it completely takes away his agency for generosity when it's an expectation. That's okay. Good. Because ideally, treating someone should come from a generous place. Now, a lot of women will argue, well, I spend all this money getting dressed up. He should pay for the date. Again, it's coming from an expectation. But I say to those women who get dressed up, when you get dressed up to go out with your girlfriends on a Friday night, do you make your girlfriend pay for the date? No, or pay for the time together, excuse me. Okay, now here's the thing about paying for a date. It indicates that the man is in pursuit, okay?
Yes, sir.
And the problem with that narrative is we don't know. Typically, when we meet a total stranger, this isn't someone you know from the past. This is a total stranger. We don't know on a first, second, third, fourth date whether or not we want to pursue them, unless we are driven by our little head. If our little head is doing the talking, then it's going to absolutely pursue someone, which is oftentimes the case. Men will be, could love bomb, they could pay and all these things, but it doesn't guarantee any relationship success. I'm an advocate for the following, and this is what I do in my own life. I'm very upfront with someone. I say, when we meet for the first time, can we agree to meet as friends? In other words, can we just agree that we're meeting as friends and take out all the traditional expectations of this first meet just to see if we like each other? Now, a lot of women are offended by that, and I understand that. But what it does is it actually puts us on equal footing. It's not that I'm putting someone in the friend zone. I'm just simply saying, I don't know you well enough to know if I want to invest my resources in you. I don't necessarily like that it's a traditional expectation. How about we change the narratives going forward, or we take turns? I would prefer taking turns. I treat once, you treat once, we take turns. In other words, we can come from our place of generosity. And the benefit to women who disagree with this is it allows you to be in your power. When you're in your power and you're not obligated to another person, it actually puts you on a much stronger footing in a potential relationship for the future.
You're so right. You're so right. I hear that complaint all the time. Well, if he pays for the date, that doesn't mean he's obligated to the vagina, right? He's not obligated to sex. Well, staying in your power alleviates that problem, because now you don't have that sense of obligation because you paid for yourself, he paid for himself, or you had that conversation early where, hey, it's my turn to pay, where he's paying for the next one, and it removes that, it relaxes that. Did
Well,
I understand it?
the other benefit, and please forgive me for interrupting, the other benefit is that the thing is, our current narrative is men are supposed to chase women. That's been our narrative. Now, I want to clear up something for your audience. Whenever women have said to me, men are hunters, men are chasers, men love the hunt, men love the chase, I can promise every man and woman out there, men are not doing the following. I'm hunting a relationship. Let me hunt for a relationship. Men hunt sex, okay? Let's just be clear. Men are hunters for sex, and we are not hunters for a relationship. So the thing is, by actually putting each other on an equal footing, see, here's the problem. Women are so conditioned that men are supposed to be the pursuer, that what happens is man and woman go on a first date, and they have a good time. He pays. He picked the place and paid for it. Okay. And after the date, he's like, oh, I had a nice time with you. And he never calls again. And the woman says, he ghosted me. You could have easily called him and said, hey, I'd like to take you out. But see, we already get criticized if we just don't like you. It's not like we're going to call you and say, hey, I just want to let you know, I really didn't like you and I don't want to see you again. But because we have this power dynamic, I'm inviting women to step into their empowerment. If a guy hasn't texted you or call, you call and text. But Jonathan, that's me chasing them. Effort is not chasing. That is the biggest misnomer. When a woman makes effort, that's not chasing. Chasing is when someone is running away and you're begging them to come back. That's chasing. Effort is just simply, hey, I had a good time with you. I'd like to see you again. Are you game? And he goes, no, I'm not. And then it's done.
Right. There's an invested interest, just like he's getting to know you, you're getting to know him. And so effort is not chasing. I love that.
Yeah. Marcus,
we love that.
Remember, Marcus, I said this earlier. the challenge we have is that we have this, when you're meeting a total stranger, we almost have this deep need for instant chemistry, because without that spark, without that chemistry, we're less likely to invest spending more time with someone. The problem is chemistry doesn't equal relationship success. Certainly we need chemistry to, lift off the engine, so to speak. But, but what really makes a relationship successful is shared values, lifestyles that can blend with one another, and most importantly, emotional maturity. That's what a relationship needs to be successful. The problem is when we're driven by our lower chakras, if you will, if we're driven by lust or limerence, it can cloud us to true compatibility.
I love the metaphors here. This is you are a professional, true and true. I want to backpedal one step.
Sure.
I want to touch on ghosting, because I used to be guilty of this, right? Ghosting, I think, is okay. Especially I say ghost early, because there's not a huge emotional attachment. We barely got to know each other. I have made it an art form when I used to date, that when I got to know someone, to vet them and ask the big questions early on. And depending on those answers, I would ghost you, because I mean, just like what you said, I'm getting to know you not just face to face or at dinner or at coffee. I'm getting to know you over the phone. I'm getting to see your social media. And with those things and talking to you and asking you those hard questions, I can make an educated decision that this isn't worth either of our time. And so I will ghost you. Am I wrong? Or should men ghost, or should women ghost? Is ghosting okay, or should we get rid of it altogether as a part of cancel culture? That's a buzzword.
Well, we first off, the problem is the terminology ghosting or disappearing. The problem is, if I don't ask you on a date, that's not ghosting. That's just, I didn't ask you out on a date. The problem is that we don't have the right term for saying, I'm just not that into you. That's really what this is about. I'm not into you anymore. We need a new term to signify when I stop communicating with you, because the idea of ghosting actually came about when two people were in a relationship. They had been physically intimate with someone, and then someone completely disappeared like a ghost. Okay. Sure. That would be true ghosting. I text messaged a woman the other day. We had 2 text exchange. She messaged me first because it was Bumble. I messaged her back. She messaged me. I messaged her back. And she messaged me, and there was nothing in that message that made me interested in responding. So I just didn't respond. Is that ghosting? I have since decided now, whenever that happens, I send a final message. I feel disconnected and I'm not interested anymore. Or I wish you all the best on your journey is what I say. I think the challenge, well, let me backtrack for a second. Marcus, please. I want to commend you. What you're doing is exactly what we should be doing. Vetting people first based on, if we're meeting through an online connection, through all the different online medium services. I mean, I try to figure out someone's Facebook page, Instagram, just to get a sense of who they are. Just because they're a stranger, I want to get a peek into your life. And if it's public, I'm entitled to view it. You then jump on a telephone call. I talk about 3 of my most core important values that are critically important to me. I always discuss that on a phone call. One of them happens to be centered around personal development, self-help, spiritual work. It's a big part of my life. In addition, I want to know that someone has been out of a significant relationship for at least 6 months, and they've actually done some level of therapy to heal from their past relationships. Those are 3 qualifying questions. If they haven't passed that, I've learned through experience that we most likely won't be aligned with each other. These just happen to be my 3. Your 3 could be something different, But I think it's important to get some core questions. And then when you can meet, say, hey, let's just meet as friends. Let's take the pressure off of dating and just meet as friends. And that way, if it doesn't work out, we can shake hands and move on.
Thank you for that. One of my core 3 is moral compass. What guides you? Where are you ethically? I dated a young lady a long time ago. She had a cleaning business, and in her cleaning business, she was pretty decent size, medium sized business. She had a staff of cleaners. She was doing commercial and residential. One of her cleaners she had hired stole some jewelry from a client.
Okay.
That this lady came in, cleaned her house, and stole a pearl necklace from the client. The client complained, called her, and told her, my pearl necklace is missing. And I'm listening to this conversation while I'm dating this lady, and she says, well, I'll reimburse the pearl necklace, no problem, but I need you to take down your Google review that you left with a negative 1 star.
Yeah.
And that ethically did not sit well with me, because in my aspect, you should return the lady's money irregardless, especially if it's true. If your staff did indeed steal the necklace, you should return the lady's money. Whether she revamps the review or not, what you should do is comment underneath the review, hey, I credited back the cost of the necklace, but the review is real. And so ethically, we did not connect. And so that's one of my core 3. If we can't ethically get together.
It's interesting because, and by the way, I completely understand and acknowledge how you viewed that. And I believe I also understand why that woman you dated might have operated that way, because she's also, trying to be protective of her business. I'm not giving excuses here. I can understand it. The challenge with morality, it's very difficult to determine morality in asking questions. It's a little bit more difficult to assess someone's morality. You have to see them in action. You happen to be fortunate enough to be overhearing a phone call and picking up on that. And certainly there are moments when you can see that within a person. But morality is harder to pick up early on. This is why one of the things I invite everybody to do, this doesn't give you their morality, but it gives you a sense of their character or where they are emotionally, is ask them to talk about why their past relationship ended. Marcus, I will say to you that 97% of the time, men and women do the following. It was his fault. It was her fault. It was his fault. It was her fault. And they completely blame the other person. They completely throw the other person under the bus. They completely make that person seem like they were degenerate practically, and I'm exaggerating a little bit. And they are unabsolved. They are unabsolved from any responsibility. That is a clear sign that something could legitimately be wrong. And what I mean to say is, even if you were with an abusive person, a toxic person, you have to take 3% ownership. Take some ownership of your part in this relationship. And it's not that you accepted the behavior. Take some ownership, okay? Because if you take no ownership, then what's going to happen in the next relationship? And I want to tell you a quick story to illustrate this just for a second. This was a red flag that I didn't listen to, okay? So I dated a woman some years ago, actually a former supermodel from New York back in the 80s. And I asked her, I said, what happened in your divorce? And she goes, oh, my husband was a narcissist. I go, okay, really? I go, what happened to the last guy you dated? Oh, he was a narcissist. I go, what about the guy before that? He was a narcissist. And like 3 others. So I'm like, well, I'm not a narcissist. I'll be her hero. And we sure enough dated. And quite frankly, I was actually bored with her. She wasn't very communicative. She wasn't really that affectionate. I just wasn't that excited after 6 weeks. Or no, was it 6 weeks? Oh, about 4 weeks. Excuse me. We dated for about 4 weeks. We saw each other maybe 8 times, give or take. Okay. Yes, sir. And I just, I said to her, I'm just not feeling it in this relationship. And I ended it. Do you know what I saw on Facebook the next morning?
You're a narcissist.
I'm a narcissist.
You're
I'm like,
toxic.
oh, fuck, the clue was there. I didn't listen because I don't think I'm a narcissist, but I realized her pattern was she didn't take any ownership in her past relationship. Gigantic clue. But shame on me for not listening.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. We are both in the same boat. We both had those experiences. Men and women, we need to be paying attention. We need to be paying attention to the clues that people give us. Because then, again, take accountability. Even if it's 3%, take accountability for your own. Because you did choose this person to some degree. You said yes to this person. You said yes to this relationship. So life
Well,
is about choices.
you know where I take responsibility in one part? I recognize now that the drive for physical connection, that drive for sex, is so powerful that we oftentimes blind ourselves to really true compatibility and truly being committed to commitment. And I'm going to take ownership that I was more interested in sex than I was building a relationship with her. I take full responsibility for that. The drive for sex is so powerful. I mean, it's hard to, keep it in your pants type of thing. I take ownership of that. I shouldn't have engaged in this relationship until I knew her much better. And I take ownership of that.
That's honest. Spilling it. That's what we do here on Gentleman Style Podcast Show. We are going.
And the other thing is, and this is where I know you have another question for me, but I want to bring this up. Yeah. We here in the United States, we men and women are rather lonely. We're thirsty for companionship, emotional connection, and sex. We're thirsty for it. And because of that, we oftentimes enter into dynamics with people that we are either not ready for commitment or we're afraid of commitment. And I think the real downfall in our society, one of the many downfalls in our society today, is that casual relationships now have become the norm. And the problem with casual relationships is there's no standards to commitment. And the problem lies in that you can easily get attached to a person emotionally when you're physically intimate with them, when you're emotionally intimate with them, when you've opened your heart and it doesn't work out. And there's a emotional collateral damage that can happen. If it happens too many times, men and women become gun shy, they become bitter, they become jaded, they become fearful, and they become, looking for the next person to fix what's missing inside of them.
On that basis, how long should someone date before committing to someone? How long should I take? Because we both gave two paradigm examples of ourselves. I say phone call, as early as possible. You gave an example with the model, 4 weeks. You knew what you knew, right? So how long should someone's average ballpark date before deciding, hey, I need to step away or we need to take this to the next step?
I think it starts with radical honesty as soon as you can possibly do it. So first, like on that telephone call, is do some pre-qualifying, like you said earlier. I think when you're dating, I actually believe dating should be an interrogation process. And I'm being tongue in cheek. A lot of people say don't interview someone on a date. I'm the opposite. Interrogate them. And what I mean to say is, ask some of the really radically tough questions to make sure you're on the same page as soon as you can possibly do that. So, and to determine what your motives are. Now, here's the tricky part. I am now a gigantic advocate for life partner-based relationships. In other words, only date if you seek a life partner. If you're only seeking something casual, that really has a propensity for a lot of, miscommunication, misunderstandings was the word I was looking for. Misunderstandings. So if you genuinely want a life partner, then you have those radically honest questions about money, about your past relationships, about how you live your life. Ask those deeper questions to see if you're on the same page. And hopefully, if you have a bit of chemistry with one another and your lifestyles are blendable with one another and they've done some healing from their past, you have a greater chance for relationship success. So, but the thing is, there's no.
Sorry.
It's not. I'm sorry. I know Steve Harvey will say, it's 90 days, make the guy wait. I don't subscribe to timelines. What I subscribe to is being in integrity with a person every step of the way. If you are in integrity with yourself, if you're in integrity with the other person, and don't rush the physical intimacy too soon. I know people that met, and on the first date, they knew it was the one, and they've been living happily ever after. And I know people have dated, they waited for sex for a year and it was miserable after that. So, there's no real rule of thumb.
Absolutely. We got to go to a quick commercial break. This has been incredible, but I'm going to hit you with a Dave Ramsey relationship question when we come back from commercial break. But this is good. You guys stay tuned. Stay with us. We got to pay some bills. We'll be right back.
Baby Gear Services DMV specializes in high-quality baby gear rentals in the Maryland and DC metro area. We have a wide range of baby gear items for rent, including wooden cribs, car seats, high chairs, and more. We also offer seasonal specials and free delivery. Our prices are very versatile to cover every budget. Wooden cribs start at $17 a day. High chairs and even car seats start at $5 a day. Check out our website, www.bgsdmv.com.
Support for Gentleman Style Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. Manscaped offers you precision engineering tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off free worldwide shipping with the code GENTSTYLE at manscaped.com.
Elevate your wardrobe with a custom-tailored suit jackets from Alex Rose. Experience the luxury of bespoke fashion, where every detail is crafted to perfection. A tailored suit jackets from Alex Rose is more than just clothing. It's a statement of sophistication and individuality. Why choose Alex Rose? 1. Perfect fit. Tailored to your exact measurements, ensuring unmatched comfort and style. 2. Premium quality. Only the finest fabrics are used, offering durability and a luxurious feel. 3. Personalised service. Enjoy a consultation with expert tailors who understand your preferences and style. 4. Unique design. Stand out with a suit that is uniquely yours, designed to reflect your personality and taste. 5. Long-term investment. A well-crafted suit is a timeless addition to your wardrobe, perfect for any occasion. Discover the confidence and elegance that comes with a custom-tailored suit jackets from Alex Rose. Visit Alex Rose to start your bespoke journey today. Happy suiting up. alexrose.uk.
We are back to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and we have the incredible Jonathan Aslay. He's been spilling the tea all episode, all over this show about dating, misconceptions, myths, debunking myths, all episodes, and giving the insight, the wisdom of years of knowledge and experience and expertise on what we've been doing wrong, how can we improve, and how can we establish better connections. If you missed any of that, go back, scroll back, and check him out. This platform, we are on iHeartRadio, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Audible, YouTube, Facebook business page, and anywhere you get your podcast today. He is there. And his incredible YouTube channel, Jonathan Aslay himself, is also an incredible source. If you missed that, reach out to me and I will get you to him. This man is huge. Sir, I got a question. It's a financial question, but it's still a dating marriage question. I found it on a Dave Ramsey show, and it was just profound to me. And I feel Dave Ramsey gave bad advice here. But you listen in and tune in, and you tell me. We're gonna dive in on it after we play this video.
75.
What's that mean?
Like 975,000. How to ask my husband to be able to kind of be a stay-home mom. I don't really feel like I want to go back to work. I feel like I really want to spend time raising our little one.
Cool. What a great goal. Does he make enough money for y'all to live on?
Yeah, he makes about 975.
What's that mean?
Like 975,000.
$975,000 a year?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you could probably freaking struggle through.
It's not so much the finances as it is. I think he has a worry that I'll never go back to work.
So
I know
he makes $975,000. So if you want to be outside the home and have a career, and that's your aspiration, and you want to do that, then no shame on that either. But this idea that somehow motherhood is to be shamed or to be looked down upon is absolute BS. Moms can't.
I think this is a Dave Ramsey faux pas, but I need your expertise. Did you hear the clip?
Yeah. Yeah. I heard the clip.
Please help us. What do you think of that advice?
I mean, Marcus, I'm going to say I'm on board with what he said. If a guy's making $975,000 a year, which is in the 1 percentile of Americans, or actually it's probably a half percentile of Americans, or maybe even 0.1, like it's so that if a man is making that much, I think if he has children, he would want his partner to be actively raising the children, because that's actually better for the children than someone who's outside the home raising children. So at first, I actually agree with him. Now, does that mean, now we're talking about $975,000 a year. And now if you said to me, he makes $75,000 a year and she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, okay, that's a little bit of a different story. Okay. Absolutely. Because again, as we said earlier, you almost need 6 figures just to be able to support oneself here in the United States. Now, I'm a little bit exaggerating that, but for the most part, you might need 2 incomes to support oneself. Now, this gets tricky because the woman, or the resources that the woman is making outside of the home, now you've got to pay for daycare and others. So a lot of times that woman who's working outside the home, half of what she makes is just going to have someone else take care of your children. This is because we stopped living in community, family-based environments where you could have your resources surrounded through family. So this is one of the dilemmas. But my feeling is this: the guy makes $975,000 a year. He should want his wife at home. I'm in agreement with Mr. Ramsey.
Understood.
Well, by the way, I'm open to hearing why you think it's a faux pas for a guy who makes $975,000 a year.
I think it's a faux pas without hearing the man's side. I think it's a fumble to not hear why this husband, who does have a ridiculously high income, you might as well say he makes $1 million a year, but there has to, I can't imagine that a man who makes that much, there's got to be a reason. Suspect that there's a reason.
I didn't hear this part. Did she say the husband wanted her to work? Did he say that in the clip, that the husband wanted her to work?
I think she said, and I already destroyed the clip, but I think she said that he doesn't want her to work, or she feels strongly convicted to come home, but he won't let her. I don't think she's asked. I don't think she's broached the subject with him, but she just feels convicted, because why would you? Why would he? Yeah. I think she's going off of like, okay, my husband makes this much, he should allow me, and just say, hey, honey, you can stop working.
Okay, now I'm in agreement. The problem is the approach you take to this conversation versus the merits of the idea. I'm just going to say, and I would venture to say 99.9% of men who make $975,000 a year, unless their partner also made $975,000 a year, most guys could give a shit about the wife working. Okay. Most of the time. Okay. With that said, if he said, look, it's important for me that you still maintain some sovereignty and you are an active participant, and then she comes back with that argument, well, then it's a conversation and you have to come to an agreement. If you can't come to agreements, your relationship is already on shaky ground, because oftentimes, again, you have to be careful. Was she coming from a place of entitlement? I don't deserve to work. Or was she coming from a place of, hey, I want to take care of the children, and I think it's better for our children? Again, depends on the circumstances. So again, I sided with him, but there are caveats, okay?
I would you want to know, as a husband, you would want to know, hey, your wife desires to come home, you'll take it into consideration, versus what I think Dave Ramsey just gave a stamp to is now she's just going to quit her job. And then the husband's going to come home and say, hey, honey, you're home early from work. Oh, I quit 2 weeks ago. That's not.
Yeah, well, that's not treating it as a partnership. If you unilaterally make a change that, by the way, I have a belief is transparency is if it affects another human being, you have to be transparent about it. That's what transparency is. If she felt like you say, hey, look, I don't feel comfortable working anymore for these reasons, and this is why I want to make a change, you have a conversation. If you make a unilateral decision, you're affecting trust with another human being. You are literally acting in a disingenuous way with somebody you said, where you were at the altar and said, I'm going to, speak up when I have something I want to talk about, versus just unilaterally making a decision.
Absolutely. Jonathan Aslay, y'all. We are debunking all the myths.
I'm loving these questions. Hit me with more. I'm on a roll.
You are killing it absolutely today. This is absolutely incredible. In this new age, it's 2024, the age of our Lord. And and this is a really great question, because you speak to this age demographic of 40 plus men and women. And so age gaps, do they matter? And why are they controversial? Should they matter? Should a man or woman be considering an age gap, or just, hey, I love him, she loves me, let's do this. We've checked all the boxes.
This is a great question for a variety of different reasons. I'm always thinking of relationships from a long-term perspective. So it's not the first, second, or third date, or the first weeks or months or years. It's later on down the road. If you're a 60-year-old man and you're dating a 30-year-old woman, the days in front of that man are shorter than the days behind him. And, it might create problems later on down the road where she ends up becoming a caretaker for that man. That's one thing that needs to be considered. And certainly if it's the other way around, that might come into effect. Although women tend to live, I believe, 7 years longer than men on average. So you might, a woman could go down 7 years and that actually works out okay. I'm a person that's to each their own. You know what? If you feel a connection with another human being, then you explore it. If you're in integrity with each other, if you're in alignment with each other, if you're emotionally grown up with each other, then you go for it no matter the age. I do believe men historically choose younger women based on several factors. They certainly like the physical components of the woman. They certainly like the fact that it might help them raise the equipment, so to speak. And they also like that women don't seem to have as much baggage when they're younger versus those that are older. So I can understand why they do it. The thing is, most younger women who choose older men, they usually have something known as daddy issues. And often, and I'm just saying, not all the time, but a lot of the times. And with daddy issues can come a wide variety of emotional, challenges in the relationship, number one. And then usually women who are much younger, they usually are choosing men with more resources because that's what they bring to the table. That's the trade-off. They bring resources. You know, hey, again, to each his own. You know, if you're a grown man, you're a grown woman, you can do whatever you want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My next question, this is profound because it really speaks to that, because I've dated older women, I've
Yeah.
dated younger women, and I find that I have a much easier time dating older women with the women because they're much further in life with me than me. But I am taboo, right? I own businesses, real estate, that type of thing. So it's almost like we're in sync when I meet an older woman versus a younger woman who's just looking to tap me for my resources. So you were the expert to ask that question to.
Well, and by the way, now there's something I didn't share in my like I don't know how old you are, Marcus, but yeah, I can understand why some younger men prefer older women, because a lot of younger women are rather emotionally immature or they haven't established themselves. So I can see why a younger man might seek an older woman who's more attractive. The other thing is you don't have to necessarily worry about an older woman getting pregnant, which takes that out of the equation. And the younger man can date the older woman, and he has a built-in exit clause. The minute he changes his mind, he can say, I want to start a family with someone, I'm going to go younger. So I can see why there's some benefits for younger guys going for older women. Plus, older women oftentimes are more appreciative in the bedroom because they're getting some young stud. So I'm not saying all of this is right or wrong. I'm just saying these are some of the things that might be in play.
Absolutely. So because we're on the topic of dating older, younger, you gave up the example earlier about, hey, if he's 60, she's 30, you might become her caretaker. When should a couple introduce mental health issues when dating? How open should one be about their struggles, if at all?
You know, this is a great question because I said earlier, if it's transparent if it's material to the relationship, we need to discuss this early. For example, we can talk about mental health and physical health as well. So, I certainly, if you had a venereal disease, you don't wait till after sex to talk about it. You do it beforehand. For example, I would say when trust has been built between two people, because I may not want to share a medical condition with a stranger. I may not want to share a mental health condition with a stranger. So trust needs to be built. How do you build trust? You spend time with each other. You do social activities. You do hobbies. You do mutual interests. You spend time with family and friends. You get to know each other to build trust. I always say it takes about 100 hours of face-to-face time just to build the first layer of trust. Just the first layer of trust. And there are multiple layers of trust. I think if it's material to a relationship and two people have agreed we are going to explore a relationship together, that is about the time to share anything that could affect the relationship.
That's good. That's good right there. I like that. Be honest, people. Be honest. If it matters, be honest, right? Give your status. Like when it comes to mental health and, like you said, physical health. If you are suffering with something, right before the time it becomes prevalent, you should say something, right?
And we have to differentiate between situational things. Like, the other day I was feeling slightly depressed. Okay. And I'm saying, I don't want to over dramatize it, but I was feeling melancholy and blue. I just wasn't feeling myself. I'm not in a state of depression, but I was certainly feeling that way. And when I feel that way, I don't feel like talking to anyone. Well, the minute you start dating someone, you're like, oh, I've got to always talk to you. And there's some days where you just need to like chill from it. So I mean, again, it's not a mental health, but we all go through emotional crises all the time. What matters most is being be vulnerable, be authentic, and be transparent.
True. Very true. This is on the rise. This question I had to get out with the expert. The rise of polyamory relationships.
Okay.
This is I feel like I thought it was going to be a trend, but it seems like it's here to stay. And more men are opening up to it. And one of the things that they're speaking to is that this is a primal thing, right? We back in the day, men had multiple wives to spread their seed out and to take care of the farm, right? I need hands, I need able bodies to take care of the farmland. And so I feel like it's on the rise again, and I feel like it's here to stay. But what is your expertise on polyamory relationships? Are they a healthy alternative to monogamous, or is this a trend?
First off, it's certainly here, so it's beyond the trend, like you said earlier. It is here. I believe it's just an excuse to be a swinger in a way. Now, that I'm being a little tongue in cheek when I say that, but it's an excuse to be, a swinger in a sense. Here's where I struggle with this. The minute we have physical intimacy with someone, particularly women, when a woman has sex with a man, but this is true for men as well, they release a chemical known as oxytocin that bonds them to that person. And unless you are a really detached human being, in other words, you are detached, which, Buddha says all suffering comes from attachment. The minute we have physical intimacy with someone, we become emotionally attached to a person. And so I'm not an advocate for polyamory. I'm not an advocate for it because, and I'm going to be candid, I had my heart broken. I fell deeply in love with someone, and she ended, by the way, we were together for 1.5 years. We lived together, but the relationship wasn't right for her, which is fine. If it's not right for one, it's not right for both. Let me be clear. But I suffered an emotional collateral damage by her choice for leaving. So I compare this, and because we were physically intimate, we shared a lot of intimacy with each other. Polyamorous people oftentimes, they can become incredibly emotionally intimate with someone. I'm not talking about physical intimacy, emotional intimacy. But I think some people choose it, like I said, as a way to swing, and they're not emotionally attached. But usually one person gets attached, and that has collateral damage.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you for that healthy perspective. It is something takes time. You got to go through it. You got to feel it out before you just say it, because especially when I used to date, I would come across women that would kind of broach the subject just to try get a temperature on how I feel about it. And then when they saw I wasn't for it, now it's like, oh, well, I'm not for it really. It's something I did when I was in college. But it's hey, you asked because you might want to explore this. So it's a real thing. And so
I think if a woman steps into it, that's an interesting, like when a woman leans into it, in the case that you were discussing, she's actually feeling you out to see how you respond to it. She's looking at your moral compass. She's looking at your relationship compass, because sadly, and women traditionally, up until the invention of birth control, women had a significant consequence for sleeping with a man who wasn't her husband. There could be a baby 9 months later. So, but women, I recognize that women traditionally want commitment more than men. Traditionally speaking, men tend to, as you said earlier, want to spread their seed and like, oh, I'm used to, as the caveman in me is used to spreading the seed, so I want to spread my seed. I think I believe it's in a woman's best interest to evaluate the man's sincerity when it comes to commitment. And asking that question might be a test in some cases to see, hey, where you're landing in that. And the fact that you said, no, I'm not into it, and she goes, I'm not into it, it's because she's testing to see if you're a player. Are you a player? Because that's what it is. Most people that choose, true polyamorous people, genuine, serious polyamorous people, they have a lot of protocol. They have a lot of discussions. There is more to it than just sleeping around. I think a lot of people choose polyamory to sleep around versus the true legitimate factor of many loves.
You're right. You're right. Thank you for that, because that's something I hadn't even considered. That might have been a test on her, looking
Yeah.
to see if I was, fooling around or not, or am I the
Yeah.
type to fool around?
Are you a player?
It's so true. I got two more.
You
If
can give me 10 more. I'm enjoying this. This is going by so fast. We can go for another whatever.
I appreciate you. I have the common thing. This is Gentleman Style Podcast, God, Family, Finance. So religion. Is religion a deal breaker, or is it a bridge builder in relationships? Should I, even in this day and age, because I feel like there's a rise of atheists up and coming, people falling out of the church. So is religion still a factor in the dating world?
I think this is a great question. And, I want to differentiate between someone's religious beliefs versus their spirituality. I think healthy relationships need some sort of emotional, spiritual connection beyond themselves to strengthen the health of a relationship. Now, I'm talking about a spiritual connection. To me, a spiritual connection is simply a connection to your higher self, your divinity, something greater than yourself. I actually call it God, universe, and spirit. I call it Gus, okay? That's the way I term it. Some people use God, some people use universe, some people use spirit. I do believe that healthier relationships with a connection to their own divinity, and when two people have that, it strengthens it. Now, religion is a different thing, because there's doctrines to religion, there's principles to religion, there's commandments within religion. Now, when you have somebody who is a devout Christian, I mean devout, carries their Bible with them wherever they go to church 5 days a week, they literally live at church, they're going to have a really hard time being with an atheist who doesn't believe in God, okay? Certainly when two people come from different backgrounds, say if they're Jew, like there are people who are culturally Jewish, but they're not religiously Jewish, but they're culturally Jewish. I believe having discussions about how important is your faith, particularly if you follow a religious doctrine versus a spiritual doctrine. This is just my point of view. I'm not saying this is right. This is just the way I interpret it. I think people that are agnostic, in other words, I'll believe it when I see it, they tend to blend. They can blend with people most likely because they're kind of ambivalent to it. So then you have to assess, how devout are you in your religion? And the more devout a person is, ideally they need someone aligned with them. However, as I said earlier, I believe healthy relationships where two people have a genuine spiritual connection, they tend to have better relationships.
Ask the tough questions early.
Oh, absolutely.
So I want to pivot to now. Thank you for religion.
Okay.
Political. This is a voting year. I'm gonna throw the curveball. Can two people with differing political views stand together, or should that be a deal breaker in the relationship?
Well, given there's an election here in the United States, I don't know when this podcast we'll either know the candidate or the winner or not. Here's the way I view politics. Politics is, to some degree, your political stance is also a reflection of your values. In other words, what you hold dear to you from values. I think your political affiliation can speak volumes to that. Now, I believe we'll use Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. If somebody would die on the sword for Donald Trump, I mean, literally goes to rallies, like carries the MAGA hat and all that kind of stuff, and they go on a first date with someone who has got the Kamala Harris t-shirt on and singing their praises, I think they're going to have some problems if they are devout in they're not devout, if their ideologies are rather fixed and rigid. Because the problem with people that are at the ends of the spectrum is oftentimes their ideologies of the world is very fixed and rigid. And when you have a fixed and rigid ideologies in the world, and the two people are, clashing in that, it's going to make it very problematic. Now, here's the good news. Roughly about 60% of Americans are in the middle anyway. They kind of like they float in the middle. They lean a little bit one way or they lean a little bit the other way for a variety of different reasons. Maybe it's they vote based on one issue or one policy, and that's the way they view it. 60% of Americans aren't really that rigid in their ideologies. It's those people at the extremes. I'm going to tell you, usually fixed rigid ideologies means that they're rigid. They're going to be rigid in other areas of their life, and it's going to be problematic. That's my point of view.
No, that's good. I mean, if there's no give or take, there's no flexibility, and you're a stern fast right or left.
Yeah,
it's gonna be problems no matter what. That's good.
Most likely. I mean, again, by the way, it depends on how important politics are to you. If politics represents 10% of your life, I'm going to say that's a big percentage. If politics is like, I only think about it on, the second Tuesday of November, that's kind of a different story.
That's true. That's true. I want to touch on your website. Your website is really well done, very nice.
Oh.
When people reach out to you, what should a couple or a single individual have before reaching out to you?
Well, if they want to connect with me directly, they can join my mailing list, which is like listed there. Thank you so much. Just to subscribe to my philosophies. At the top, you can see YouTube and podcast and coaching and products. You can click. I would love anyone who's listening to this right now, go to my YouTube channel, subscribe, and watch some videos. I am even far more entertaining than I am today. What I mean is I oftentimes use expletives to enhance a sentence. So go to my YouTube channel. Even though it's designed for women, I have many men who follow my channel. And then, or if you want to go to Apple or Spotify, you can hit the podcast and that will take you to you can click on YouTube's podcast, or you can click on my website. Hey, and if you want to be coached by me, there's a link on my website to click coaching. And I can certainly give you advice from this male's perspective. And you can fill out the application for coaching there. Wow.
Check it out. This has been an epic conversation. I love this.
Likewise.
Mr. Aslay, thank you for what you do. Thank you for giving back. Thank you for sharing nuggets today. This has been a profound episode.
My pleasure. Thank you, Marcus.
Absolutely.
You are the gentleman.
And so I know we touched on your website, but please tell us, what's the best way, quickest way for that young man, that young woman whose back is against the wall? They're absolutely fed up with dating. They want to give it up, but then they saw this podcast and they saw you. What would you say for them to reach out? What would you say to them right here, right now?
I would go to my website, jonathanaslay.com. My name's listed here. Click on the coaching button. That will take you to my application for coaching. You can fill that out. It takes you right to my calendar where you can schedule a brief discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. And, we'll see. And I'll point you if I can't help you, I'll point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. Connect, y'all. This is absolutely incredible. We gotta let him go. He has many more lives to save, many more relationships to cover, and dating tips and strategies. You saw that YouTube. Subscribe. I subscribe. So, like we end, and sir, I want to say this to you publicly. Don't ever quit. We need you. We need you. So
you know what? I actually needed to hear that. Today of all days, I need to hear that. Thank you for that message.
Absolutely. Like we end every show, we are out of time. We got to let this incredible man go. He has many more lives to share, many more people to save, many more people to help. So like we end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and the incredible, super fragilistic, Jonathan Aslay, signing off. Love you guys. Bye.